Hello everyone, it's Alexandra. Today we're going to begin working on the Antique Fashion mini book, and we're going to assemble page number 1 out of 5. But before we get down to it, I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone who purchased the kit so far, with so many talented crafters out there who offer digital products. I feel really privileged that you showed interest in some of my work. A really huge thank you to all of you from the bottom of my heart. Now let's get to the point of today's video. I'm going to mention a few tools that we're going to use today, and then we will start working. You will need a few plain printing paper sheets for adding into the first booklet that our page number 1 will have. You will also need to use some of the circle punches, and the ones that I'm going to use today include the following sizes: 1/2 inch, 3/4, 1 inch, and 1.5. I also have here a 1/8 of an inch circle punch, but you can substitute that one with a punch similar to this one, or with a crocodile. We will need a crocodile for setting an eyelet in one of the little tags as well. So if you have it handy, that's awesome. Then, of course, you're going to need your scissors, your glue, your scoreboard. Then for cutting everything out, I'm going to use my favorite cutting tools, and these are just a craft knife and a ruler. We are going to need some of the thread for wrapping it around this paper spool, and you are welcome to use either DMC embroidery floss if you have it, or any other thread which is not very thin, because then it will take you a longer time to wrap it around the spool. I have this kind of thread in my stash, so I'm going to use one of these colors. And of course, don't forget about protecting your surface with a self-healing mat. And since I already mentioned that we are going to add an eyelet to one of the tags, then also prepare some eyelets, please. From the stack of the pages that I hope you have already printed, partially or fully, you are going to need the ones that I'm going to show you now. This page, then you're going to need this one that will form the base of our first page in the book. Then these pages will be the matting layers for the base page. Then we will need some elements from the page that looks like this. We're going to use this page as well. From this page, we're going to use the gloves. And I also suggest that we cut out the envelope and store some fussy cut elements in it. Let me take the first page with the base and put the rest aside for now and start cutting. I want to remind you the measurements of my base page, and they are 4 3/8 by 6 3/8. Now I'm going to take my scoreboard and score some lines on this element. So I'm going to make sure that I put this piece of paper on top of the scoreboard so that this line is right above one of the grooves of the scoreboard, and then score on top. Then flip the piece and do the same with the second white line. We have 2 scored lines that we can use for folding our flaps. Use your bone folders and just reinforce the fold lines. We are going to glue two of these elements together, and I want you to position them like so. The ivory line that you have here going vertically will be on the left-hand side, and then the rectangular piece positioned like so, where we have the narrower white area closer to the top of the page. Then you will flip this page like that, and you're going to apply some glue along the top flap. Make sure that you get as close to the outer edge of the flap as possible. Once again, I'm showing you how my page is positioned, and now I'm covering that page with the second piece, making sure that I line the edges together on the left-hand side and at the top. Okay. Using liquid glue really helps here because you have a few seconds to make sure that you positioned everything straight. The edges of both of the paper layers have to be flush one with another. Add the glue to the second flap at the bottom of the page and seal it together. And this will be the base of our first page in the book. I will use some ink and add it along the edges of this page on both sides and set it aside for now. Next, we're going to work with the page that looks like this. And the same way, first of all, I'm going to cut two of the matting pieces that I need for adhering on top of my base page. I'm going to ink the edges of both of these pieces before cutting out the slots or slits in each one of them. Next, you are going to use your 1/8 of an inch circle punch or your crocodile, and I will use both just to show you how to do it. You're going to line the very edge, the curved edge of the slot with the opening in your crocodile or with an opening in your punch. Oh, my punch doesn't reach there. Okay, so problem solved. I'm going to use my crocodile. So I'm just going to line that up the best I can and punch it out, and do the same with the remaining two slots. Now that we have that done, we're going to use our craft knives and rulers, and we will connect those two circles following the guidelines that we have on the printable, and we will create the slots that will look like this on this page, and then we will have to just repeat the steps a few times for creating 3 slots on the second page. This is how it will look like. Now I will just add some ink along the edges of the cut out openings. When this is done, let's just put all of these elements aside and move to the next page with the flap. The flap will have to be cut in a special way. I'm going to show you how to do that. I first of all want to cut out the shirts. You will see what I call a cut box around the two elements. So I'm going to use that cut box and cut both of the shirts out like so. They are connected very close to this edge of the flap, but still not fully flush with it. So you will still need to trim a very, very tiny section of paper right here to make sure that both parts of the flap match later on. But we will get to it. Now I need to cut off this piece right here. Okay, so this is what you're going to have. You can, at this point, just fold the paper piece like so. Make sure you burnish on top of that fold line. And then you can just add your glue and glue it together. Just make sure that the corners meet nicely. And now I can take the scissors and just use the beige outline around the image as my guide and cut around the shirt through both layers of the paper. And when you cut, you will see that the edges are matching perfectly on both sides. So if you folded the paper right, you don't have to worry about anything else. This will be our first shirt. Just ink the edges if you want to, and we will set it aside for now. Getting back to the flap, I'm going to cut off the piece with the circles and set it aside for now. And I'm also going to use the cut box around the spools for cutting them out. They will also have to be folded like so. You will make sure that the corners of the folded paper piece meet, and you will glue the two halves together and cut it out. Now that we have only the flap on the page and the strap here, let's cut the strap out along the straight lines first. And then you can either use your scissors or, as a matter of fact, trim very close to the rounded section of the strap and then use your corner rounder. Just don't use the very large radius there. So I think mine is not good. I will have to use the scissors. Okay, not a problem. Use the scissors there for rounding the edges of my future closure for the flap. And don't forget to ink the edges, and we'll set this piece aside. And now we can work with the remaining element on the page, which is our flap. I'm going to trim that sliver of paper on the right hand side of the flap, and it will literally be just a hair, guys, just a hair. And then I will trim along the opposite edge of the flap like so. Okay, so two of these edges are now cut perfectly. I will fold my paper together, making sure that I line both of the edges, and use my bone folder to burnish. Okay, now I will unfold the whole paper piece and cut the remaining paper sections that I do not need, because what we're going to do next is we're going to glue this part of the flap to this part, just like so. Okay, so I did that. Now I can glue both of the halves of the flap together. And then I can use my bone folder and just kind of score a line here along the shorter edge of the flap. And that will allow me to fold the 1/2 inch flap at the top easily. Okay, now what's left is to get rid of the remaining paper sections here. So I'm going to cut along this edge of the flap first, and just make sure that you don't cut too far in. Then flip the page and cut from the corner to the bottom on the right hand side and also on the left hand side. Now the remaining areas where we need to trim the corners can be cut either with the scissors, or maybe you can use your corner rounders. So what we have is the flap with the perfect matching edges everywhere. Now, if some of the paper is showing and it's not inked, then let's just ink it up both on the front of the flap and in the back. We are going to cut the pocket for the top part of this flap next. Our pocket is on the page that looks like this. The two pockets which are on the right hand side of the page and the flowers are going to be used later on some other pages in our book. So I'm going to cut them off roughly, and set them aside. We will work with this section of the page later. Now, getting back to these guys here, I am going to cut around the cut box the charm that we're going to add to our tag so that it will be easier to pull it out of the pocket. You can use, first of all, your ruler and a craft knife for cutting along the straight edges of this piece. And then use your scissors for rounding the corners. Super easy and looks great. Now, don't forget to ink the edges. Ink just finishes off all of the edges really nicely. We have our piece ready. Now, getting back to the tag, cut it out. Then fold it together. Make sure that the corners meet. Add the glue. Trim the corners, ink the edges, and set an eyelet in this hole that, of course, you're going to punch through first. I am going to set an eyelet in this little paper embellishment as well. I'm going to mark a place for punching the hole first, and then add my eyelet. I will connect two of these pieces with the thread later on. I could use a bulb pin, but I find that it is less flexible and less convenient for this specific sort of attachment. So I'm going to use a thread, and I'm gonna do that later. I just want to get back to our pocket right here. I'm going to cut along this edge that will have a notch first. Okay, just like so. And then cut around the rest of the edges. Use my scissors as usual for trimming the corners of the flaps. And then use my 1-inch circle punch for punching out that notch on the side of the pocket. Then I also like to round these corners a little bit. I don't like when they're sharp because they're wearing out easier. than when they're rounded. I have added a little bit of ink there, but I also need to score some lines before I actually fold the flaps in. Just as we did before, I want to make sure that the white line between the flap and the main section of the pocket is right above one of the grooves of the scoreboard. And then I will just score on top. And these are the score lines that we have. Now I can fold the flaps in and ink around the 3 edges that still do not have the ink on them. When you glue this pocket on top of the flap, to help you with the positioning of the pocket, I did add a very, very faint line there. You might barely see it on the pocket because I didn't want it to really be bold and show up too much. But you can either find that line and use it for positioning the pocket on top of the flap, or just match the images together because they continue one another. And this is how the pocket should be glued on top of the flap. Now, I like to glue only this little flap first. I line everything up, making sure that the edges of the pocket and the flap go parallel one to another. And of course, I do want to burnish on top of that flap. Now, before adding the glue to the remaining 2 flaps and actually gluing the pocket down, I want to take a piece of clear tape, not a very long one, just so that it's enough to go right on top of this flap here, and make sure that the piece of tape will be covered with the pocket completely, that you will not have any pieces extending there at the top and at the bottom. Why I do that? Because when you put your tag or card inside the pocket, you don't want it to catch on the edge of this flap here. So that piece of tape actually prevents it from doing that. And the tag is sliding inside the pocket really smoothly and easily. Okay, so let's add the glue to the remaining long flaps and glue our pocket down. Still make sure that the top edges of the pocket and the page go parallel one to another, like so. And now we can just slide our tag inside this pocket and leave it there for now. Getting back to the base page and the elements that we have prepared before in this video, we are going to take the matting piece with the 3 slots, and the flap will go on top of this page like so. I want to add some ink to this side of the flap. Add the glue and glue it under the matting paper piece, making sure that I center it and leave relatively equal spacings from the left and right hand side of the matting paper piece. So this is how it's gonna be. Now, before we add the glue here, we want to add our closure. And on the little piece that looks like this, you are going to see 2 dots. So just poke through them with your poking tools or needle tools, just like so. And then you're also going to see 2 tiny dots on the pattern paper piece with the patterns. So poke through those holes as well. And then I forgot to mention in the very beginning of the video that you are going to need 2 tiny brads for creating the closure and attaching it to the page. So I'm going to add the brads through the holes on this little paper piece, and then add just a little bit of glue on the outside areas of this tiny buckle, so to say. Okay, now while the glue is still wet, let's make sure that we put our brads through the holes in the larger paper piece and flatten the prongs of the brads in the back. This is how it's going to look. Now, just for some added peace of mind, I'm going to use a piece of clear tape on top of the prongs of the brads in the back of the page. Take the page that looks like this and cut out the cover for our future booklet. You will have the shirts with the cut boxes left on this page, as well as 2 more elements. We will get back to them, no worries. Now let's finish cutting out the booklet cover. Fold it. Make sure that the corners meet. Getting back to this matting paper piece, I want you to slide the booklet cover into that slot and center it on top of your page. Okay, like so. I have it centered. Now I will hold it with my fingers where it should be and flip the paper piece to the reverse side. And then we'll use my pencil and draw some lines around the edges, the visible edges of the booklet. Now I can take it out. That means that I will need to add the glue, not right along those lines, but slightly away from them, so that when we glue this page onto the base piece, we will still be able to slide our booklet in for you to better see where exactly I'm going to apply the glue. I have drawn the lines and I'm going to mark the area that will need to have the glue added on with a pencil. Okay, so this is my base page that I'm going to glue this paper piece onto. I have it ready, and I'm going now to apply the glue to the marked areas and glue this paper piece on top. Now you will see that it's a little bit smaller than the base page, and that is on purpose. So just make sure that you center the top piece when you glue it down. This is how it will look like. Okay, at this point, before we add the papers to the reverse side of the page, I want you to add some ink to, oh, let me think. Yeah, actually to this side, because here it will be attached to the binding, but this side will be visible, and we will add our card with the patent picture there. So this is just something optional. If you don't want to do it, you can just leave it. But I know that it will bother me if I will not ink this this edge here, so just forgive me. Okay, now we can continue working on the front of the page. And basically, we are going to do the same. First of all, I just want to mark the area that will have no glue, and it will go right along the edge of these cut out slots. And then here, I think I want to have about maybe 1.5 inch from the edge of the slot to the bottom edge of the paper. Okay, so this is how it's gonna be. I will add the glue to all of this area around the slots. Okay, I'm gonna do that now. I'm using the art glitter glue, so I just want to make sure that I glue everything down fast. I also want to check that the direction of the paper is correct, and put this piece on top while centering it, and then burnishing, making sure that it is glued down nicely without any air bubbles in between. And this is our first page, almost done. This is how it's gonna be. Now, the booklet, let's make sure that it can be placed inside the slot here. If it doesn't, you can take your thin metal ruler and just work the way for the booklet cover with the ruler. Just make sure that you are gentle when doing that. Let's try again. Yeah, I think it's a little bit better. I will straighten the booklet better when I add the pages to it. So I can just slide it out for now. Yes, Chloe? Do you want to say something? I think you heard her in the background. Okay, so getting back to the shirts. They will be cut exactly the same way as the one that I previously showed you. So I will use the cut boxes around each one of the shirts and cut them out. And I think I'm going to speed up this part of the video. I will also cut out the card. Now let's get back to the shirts. Just fold them and glue them down and cut them out. 2 of them are ready. Let's get back to the next page that looks like this. Now, when you see a cut box around the mirrored images, you will know for sure that they have to be glued down together. So I am going to cut around the cut box of the gloves. Fold them together like so, making sure that the corners meet. Glue the 2 halves of the paper together and cut the gloves out. The same way, I'm going to cut out the thimble. I want to get back to the ruler. We're going to cut it out first on the left-hand side and the right-hand side, and then along the long edge at the top and the long edge at the bottom. And as a matter of fact, these 2 halves of the ruler are not mirrored because I didn't actually plan to use it as a double-sided piece. For creating a double-sided element, I will just have to only this time cut 2 of the sides separately and then just flip one of the pieces and glue both of them together. And then just ink the edges and your double-sided ruler will be ready to use. Okay, so we'll set it aside. Let's think what's left. Okay, so the smaller card with the hooks. Let's cut this one out and get to this piece with the tags. I'm going to cut along the long edges of all 3 of them together first. And then I will use my scissors for cutting around the remaining edges and separating each one of them. Now let's ink the edges of each one of those. And I used them in my book for partially reinforcing the slots on my base page. And you can either do the same or not. So let me show you what I mean. Right here, I glued each one of those tags on various sides of the slots. So I think that's what I'm going to do this time as well. Let me just put everything back. Okay, I will fold each one of those tiny tags in half. I think they just look nice added to the slots there. So I will add the glue to the back of each one of the tiny tags halves, and then that might be challenging, right? It will almost reach the closure, but it's fine. It will peek out a little bit. Doesn't bother me. Okay, now we are, I think, almost done with the page. Let's just put all the little knickknacks inside. Our gloves and the shirt and another shirt. Oh, the green one will go at the bottom. Then this one will go here, and the ruler. Oh, I think the ruler will actually have to be trimmed. So let's do that. Okay, I think up to the 8 inches in my case. You will have to check what works best for you because it depends on how far in you added the glue in the back of this paper. You can just arrange all of the elements the way you like. Now, these will not be used for now. I'm going to put them aside. And we only need, I think, to add the thread to our spool. So that's what we're going to do now. I think I'm going to use the green color this time. Okay, so I will start by actually adding just a little line of glue on one side of the spool and gluing the tail of the thread on top. Just to secure it there is enough. Now I will wrap the thread around the middle area of the spool, trying to keep each loop one next to another. Try not to apply pressure on the thread when you wrap it around because we want the spool to stay flat. And although we have 2 layers of paper here, it's still not as sturdy as plastic or wood, for example. So just keep that in mind. So when you get to the end, just hold everything with your fingers and trim the thread, making sure that you keep this little tail diagonally. Okay. Now I'm still holding the thread with my fingers, just putting it aside so that I can add a thin line of glue and then cover it with that same thread. And that just ensures that all of your wound thread on the spool is secured in the back. So this is what we have. Super cute, I think. Now let me zoom you back out. We can add this spool into one of the pockets. Okay, now I told you that I'm going to attach the paper charm to the tag with the help of the thread. The thread that I have is of a beige color, but almost of the same thickness as this one. So I am going to fold it in half and add it to the eyelet. Slide the thread tails through the loop. Tie a knot. And let's see. Well, you can do it any way you like. I think I'm just going to, at this stage, slide only one thread through the eyelet on the tag and then tie a double knot here in the front. Yeah, just something like that. And then trim the excess. Maybe for some extra security, I will add a tiny, tiny dot of glue on top of the knot. Excuse my inky fingers. I have only one thing left to do other than cutting out the envelope for the fussy cuts. Yeah, we still have to deal with that. But getting back to the cover of our booklet, I want to measure it when unfolded. And mine is about 7 3/8 by 5 3/8. I'm going to use the printing paper, and I will cut 4 pages of the mentioned size. In my case, 7 3/8 by 5 3/8. I wouldn't recommend using more than 4 sheets of paper because it will just add to the bulkiness of the mini book. Your finished project will be just right. It's not a crocodile mouth. You don't really need a closure because it holds together nicely. So that's just a recommendation, but you are, of course, welcome to do whatever you want. These 4 pages will be stacked together, and for attaching them to the cover of the booklet, I am going to use plain staples. You can stitch your pages to the booklet cover, but I think the easiest is to use the staples, really. If the pages that can be seen on the right hand side after we added them bother you, you can always trim them off. Don't try to do that in one go, in one cut. Don't move the ruler from where you placed it and just cut a few times, and then you will have a perfect edge. You can add some ink to the outer edges of the pages, and it's done. We can add it inside the slot on our page. And once you do that several times, it will work better. This is our first page. Let's set it aside and get to the one last page for today with the envelope. I am going to cut it along the outer edges where I see the straight lines. I will use my ruler and a craft knife. Now I can use my scissors. Let's add some ink. And also in the back, scoring the lines. This time I am not going to use my scoreboard. I'm going to use a needle tool and a ruler. I will put the ruler right along that white thin line on the printable, and then keeping the needle tool as parallel to my working surface as possible, I will score a line and then fold it up and then fold it back to the direction that it will have to go. Add some ink and repeat the same procedure for the remaining flaps and lines. I want to add some ink to the inside of the top flap, like so. We are ready to assemble the envelope. I can just mark the area where the glue will have to be added with my needle tool. And of course, you will not see it on the video, but I do see where exactly I need to add the glue now. And I just didn't want to use the pencil because I don't want any pencil marks in here. I can add all the little fussy cut elements, including the gentleman here that I'm going to fussy cut later, and add them to the envelope as well. But I think we are done, guys. So let me clean the area and show you what we did today. Here we are. This might have been a long video, but it's the first tutorial in this series, and I want this project to be accessible both to those of you who are newer to paper crafting, as well as to those who are more advanced. So the ones who are more advanced can just sigh and fast forward in the places where you feel like I'm going too slow. But for all those who are new, I hope my detailed explanations will be useful and you will be able to work on this project without any problem. We have completed the first page out of 5, I remind you, in our mini book. And in the next tutorial, we are going to work on a miracle at page number 2. So yeah, slowly but confidently we will move forward and we will complete this project together. I hope everything was clear today. If not, you know the drill. Ask the questions in the comments and I will get back to you with the answers. Thank you so much for staying with me, for crafting with me. I am really excited to keep on putting this mini book together. So talk to you soon in a few more days. Bye.